The following is a member of the Burke Reviews podcast family. BurkeReviews.com.
Bloody awesome! Bloody awesome! Bloody awesome! Bloody awesome! Bloody awesome! Bloody awesome! Bloody bloody awesome.
Good morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are in the world, and welcome to the Bloody Awesome Movie Podcast, your friendly dose of the movie month just gone. My name is Matt Hudson from whatIwatchtonight.co.uk, and joining me today is the statesman to my kingsman,
John Burke from BurkeReviews.com.
How you doing, John?
I'm doing pretty well, Matt. How about yourself?
Not bad, thank you. There's been an awful lot happening in the world of John. And in the last episode, you mentioned you went off to South by Southwest.
Yeah.
How was that? And how was the festival? How was your month in general?
It was a really cool experience going to South by. I got to see, I think, 22 movies from the festival.
Wow.
Yeah, it was. I didn't see as many as I actually thought I was going to. I had a few friends that showed up in Austin, and I had to give them some of my time, which I don't regret at all. But it did take me out of a few movies that I'd wanted to see. But I saw some amazing films. All of my reviews are up, of course, at BurkeReviews.com, as well as a couple of bonus episodes of the podcast where I just kind of ran through what I liked about the festivals. So,
yeah, if you get a chance, go and check them out. Especially the movie reviews from the festival, because there's a few that may or may not get a wide release or any kind of release at all. So you'll be educating yourself on certain films there. And the Mr. Rogers film premiered as well. Did you get to catch that at all?
I did, yeah. Won't You Be My Neighbor? It was there. It premiered at Sundance, and then it came to South by. It's actually going to be screening at our Florida Film Festival here in Orlando from April 6th through April 15th is the festival. I don't remember which day it's at our festival, but I love that movie. I was a fan of Mr. Rogers growing up as a kid, and the film is so hopeful and optimistic, and then it reminds you that this time has passed because Fred Rogers is dead, and that makes you sad. So it's optimistic, and yet there is that kind of sobering moment when you realize that this optimism is kind of gone. And then you realize like the state of the world we're currently living in, and it hits pretty hard at the end. Like, we need somebody like Fred Rogers to come back and bring joy into our world again, because that dude was constantly optimistic and honest and just really, really amazing what he did with television,
That would be nice. By the way, I laughed because of the bluntness of your expression, not
Yes.
because of the news, by the way. Yeah, I mentioned that film solely because since the festival, that's probably the one film I've seen on social media getting the most buzz, mainly because of the message within and obviously Mr. Rogers himself and what he stood for. But so I've heard so much about that film, and I've mentioned before on the pre-South by Southwest Festival that being British, I wasn't. We didn't really see Mr. Rogers over here. But I'm aware. I have seen a few of his episodes, and I'm aware of what he did and his fantastic array of jumpers. But if I do get a chance, I will catch that film if I can.
Yeah, it's a really excellently made documentary too. Like, aside from the sentimental elements of the film, and even for me a little bit of the nostalgia from my childhood, it's just a really well put together documentary. Has a really compelling narrative, and it's a compelling story. Like, what he accomplished in his life and how he was able to do it, and how he stayed true to his core values throughout is really amazing.
Well, it sounds like something to definitely check out. And there was John, I know, definitely got one night's good sleep because he didn't get around to catching Hereditary, and I know he was absolutely terrified of seeing that.
I was more terrified of the people after the movie than I was of the movie itself, because I'm a little skittish around like a lot of people, and then it was going to be like 2 a.m. I think when the movie would have ended, and I'm already kind of like skeptical of getting in an Uber and a Lyft, and I had to use those every day, but like getting in an Uber or Lyft at like 2 a.m. and even like my idea was like waiting outside of a business that's closing, and who knows, maybe it's only 5 minutes, maybe it's 20 minutes before the Uber guy picks me up and I'm abducted and killed in Austin. And I could not convince myself to. I didn't see a single midnight screening of any of the movies because of that reason. Because I was just like, well, what? People are going to be super drunk because it's 2:00. That's when bars start closing, so people are going to be walking out of bars, and I didn't want to deal with what my head probably made a far worse situation than what was real. But yeah, I have that same fear going into Tribeca next month about New York City, and luckily all the critic screenings are in the daytime, so I won't have that fear of like walking out of a theater at 2:00 in the morning to who knows what. So
Just get back to your hotel room, put your cup of hot chocolate on, and you'll be just fine. Pajamas on.
exactly,
That's a good life now.
that's that adult life, Like
Yeah.
the adventures of going to bars and whatnot is no longer appealing to me. Like I don't mind having a drink, but I don't need the whole experience.
It's too much hassle going out and about. It's too cold.
Yeah. Well, it's not so
It's cold.
cold in Austin. It was chilly, mind you, but like I think at the coldest it was 48 degrees in Austin.
Oh, wow.
And I've heard you've been snowed in a couple of times over there.
We have been, and it's the Easter weekend over here, so apparently we're going to get snowed in again. But the snow we get probably isn't comparable to what you get stateside. We get a couple of inches, and the railway network shut down. The motorways pretty much closed. Everybody goes panic buying to make sure they get, for some reason, enough bread to see them through for a week. That's all they're ever going to eat, by the way, is bread, I think.
Oh,
So yeah, the whole country loses its mind for a few days.
yeah.
But at the minute, it's just cold and wet. So I think Florida has the upper hand.
Yeah, right now it's actually really nice outside today. It's overcast, so it's a little dark, but it's like I think 65 or something outside, which is for us nice. And your blizzard scenario, or well, I guess snowed in scenario, sounds like our hurricane scenario, where we clear off the shelves of every single store in our community, overstock on bottled water so that like no one else can have any, and then
That's
we
it.
hole up in our house that will easily be destroyed if a tree that's next door falls on it, but nonetheless, the illusion of safety is there. So
Natural selection takes over then.
yeah,
But,
exactly.
I'd rather have the ice and sugar blizzard than a full-on hurricane.
Yeah.
You can keep those stateside.
Yeah,
And
I hate them too.
sinkholes.
But I live at like the center of where hurricanes seem to come, so go figure. But
Well, make sure you have enough bottled water to stop your neighbours getting any.
exactly.
So just on the South by Southwest, was that something you'd be looking to go to next year? Would you recommend it to anyone out there wanting to go?
I do. I definitely think it depends. You got to know yourself. The downside of South by Southwest is it's not exclusively a film festival, which could also be the upside depending on what your interests are. I was there for the films almost primarily, and so the other things going on were more distractions or a nuisance because there were like people were fighting over space and times were conflicting and things like that. And the one thing about South by too is it is such a spread out festival as far as the films go. Like there's theaters are like 45 minutes apart, like walking and things like that, and that becomes hard to navigate and schedule your screenings appropriately. Like there were times where I had like a 2-hour gap between movies because I couldn't make it to a screening anywhere in that time frame. And so for that, like, I think it just depends on what you're wanting. There are other film festivals that are definitely more focused on film only, like Tribeca in New York. Theirs are, for critics especially, Tribeca is the first festival that I'm aware of that they give us separate screening times. Like, critics have a screening time during the day, and then the evening screens are general where anybody can buy tickets to go, but critics are guaranteed access to these movies, and that's not something I've seen at any other festival. So, I haven't been to that one yet, but I like that. I know I'm getting into those. Where South by, there was a chance that you show up and you're not getting in because you're too late or there's too many people, and press got no advantage. Like my badge was the same as everybody else's badge.
Oh wow!
So that's because again, it's more of a it's literally like a festival. It's like a carnival of because there's music and there's video game stuff. There's conferences, keynote speakers. I kind of wish I'd gone to some of the keynotes because like Ethan Hawke spoke. Darren Aronofsky came like the second day and spoke.
That would have been cool.
It would have been so cool, and I didn't know about it till I was already like in a screening, and I was like, "What? I didn't even." But the other thing too is South by being so big, almost every movie has a Q&A with some of the filmmakers. Some was just a producer or two, but most had at least the director. Some had cast, and that was really cool. Like I got to see 8th Grade, and Bo Burnham came out, and he brought the actress up on stage too, and they talked about the whole process of making the movie, and it was a really cool experience. That was just included with the movie. You know, there was no extra cost, there was no additional fees or anything like that, and that was pretty awesome. And that's something I think you get at South by or Sundance, where these prestigious festivals and the filmmakers are actually coming to present the movie versus like just submitting it and seeing what happens.
That's cool. I guess it just adds to the experience as well. Obviously, I was aware of South by Southwest before you mentioned it, primarily also partly because of the film Song to Song from last year, which I hated, the Terrence Malick film.
I couldn't.
I don't know if you caught that or not. You couldn't make it through it.
Yeah, I tried on Prime.
I watched it with my wonderful partner, and we both struggled. We're almost having a race to see who could fall asleep first. It was awful, and I don't mind Terrence Malick's earlier work, like most people should, but that one, I think Night of Cups, Song to Song was. I think who's in it as well. I know they didn't say anything for the whole film, pretty much, but Rooney Mara and Ryan Gosling and
Michael Fassbender,
king of crap movies at the minute, Michael Fassbender. It was just horrible.
Yeah, he is making some really bad movie choices. God, it's so crazy.
He's on the Bruce Willis train, I think, at the minute.
Yeah, but he's giving it the movie 100% though. Like, you can't watch Assassin's Creed and say he's not trying really hard, but the movie's so bad. I guess
he didn't have to try too hard in The Snowman. He just grimaced and grumbled for quite a bit of the time.
Yeah, I still haven't seen that because I've heard how bad it was.
It's barely finished if you watch it. It doesn't have. It has a quality that it's not particularly, because the script was only 80% complete apparently, and I think they just riffed the rest of it. But
oh man,
it's just a horrendous. Cause I was looking forward to that. The trailers really sucked me in.
Me too.
The premise I thought was great, but it was horrible.
Yeah, I was really hoping for like a new Silence of the Lambs type of movie.
Exactly.
And I've heard not at all. So
no, it's just ugh. If you're in a mood one night, or you just really want to punish yourself legally, watch that.
Yeah, I think that, and sadly it will especially if that ever ends up on like Netflix or HBO or Amazon Prime. I'm definitely gonna end up watching that and torturing myself with with
Don't
Harry
go out
Hole,
especially to look for it. Harry Hole.
Yeah,
it's not only is it a ridiculous name, it doesn't do anything.
It's so bad.
I know. Well, for the Bloody Awesome Movie Podcast, what we do is, John and myself, we look back at the previous month's major releases. We discuss our thoughts and opinions on them. So, without further ado, can you please reveal the lineup, John, for March, please?
Yes, so what we saw in March, we saw Red Sparrow, A Wrinkle in Time, Tomb Raider, Pacific Rim Uprising, Isle of Dogs, and Steven Spielberg's new film, Ready Player One.
I have a feeling that this is going to be a mixed bag of views.
Yeah.
But March has been, I think, a good month overall in movies. You've got the films you just mentioned, things like You Were Never Really Here, Gringo came out, Veronica came out on Netflix, which I enjoyed.
I need to see that.
I did see it will scare you.
Oh, yeah, I've heard it's like supposed to be really terrifying.
Yeah, it was pretty creepy. But I think there's no horses in it, but I think you'll still be scared. But
yes.
Before we launch into our thoughts, by the way, just be aware that we won't be diving into any spoilers for any of the movies.
Nope.
We may discuss elements of the plot that don't give anything major away, but settle down, grab your tea, beer, some fruit water, and just prepare for some spoiler-free talk.
Yeah, just kind of our overall thoughts on the films, and I think from what I've been keeping up with your site, that we have a lot of conflicting opinions this month on the movies.
Yeah, this month we do. Last month we were kind of on the level for the most part, apart from one movie. I think we both didn't like 50 Shades Freed, though.
No.
But this month I think it's going to be conflicting. We may have to have a friendly debate over the Skype.
Yeah, definitely.
So that said, let's dive into the first movie of the show, which is Red Sparrow. John, take us away with your thoughts.
Sure. It was better than I kind of expected it to be. That said, I still didn't love it. The trailer made me very, very hesitant of Jennifer Lawrence's Russian accent, which I wasn't as annoyed by once the film was going. I still don't think it's a good accent, but it's better than it could have been. I'm a Joel Edgerton fan, despite some of the things he said about the media, and I liked him in this movie quite a bit. It wasn't exactly the movie I was expecting it to be. It's not an action spy movie. It's that slow burn spy thriller, and there's some elements that I thought were interesting. Some I didn't feel paid off as well as they tried to make you think they did. But overall, I found it an enjoyable, maybe not enjoyable, a good movie. That had some moments where I was like, interesting. But, and again, that's keeping spoilers, because I could say exactly what made me say interesting, but I would completely ruin the whole movie for anyone who hadn't seen it. So.
Yeah. What did Joel Edgerton say about the media, by the way? Have I missed that?
He talked crap about film critics. That because of Bright, it was in response to Bright and the negative criticism of Bright. I forgot exactly what it said. If he said that critics are out of touch, or that I don't make movies for film critics, or something like that.
Oh, I've read something similar. I think he said he doesn't make films for the critics. Yeah.
Well, yeah, but that's not talking crap. I mean, he don't make films for us. We're film lovers just like any other person. The difference is we are more attuned to what makes something good in our own perspective. Yet it's still subjective, of course, but I think we're able to articulate why we like or dislike something usually better than someone who just casually watches films.
Oh yeah, and there are probably a lot of people out there who did like Bright. A lot of people like me thought it was horrible. So
Yeah.
and it, that for the amount of money Netflix spent and the amount of marketing they pushed, it just wasn't a very good film. But on Red Sparrow, I really enjoyed this more than I thought I would. After Atomic Blonde last year, which I thought was okay without being great, I was slightly wary of another spy thriller set in the Eastern Bloc. But this surprised me. I didn't have any doubt about Jennifer Lawrence given a good performance, because she generally is superb. Whatever you think of her off screen, on screen she always brings it, and she really did in this film. She gives a no pun intended. She gives a real naked performance. And after Mother, it's good to see her sort of continuing doing those types of films.
Yeah, now see, I was a big fan of Mother, which a lot of people were not, and I'm kind of a contrarian to her. I don't think she's as good as we say. Like, I feel like she got too much praise too early because of Silver Linings Playbook.
Mm-hmm.
I still haven't seen Winter's Bone, which I hear she's excellent in that. But I thought she did a good job with this movie. I don't always like her, so again, that's, I think, saying something more, that I did enjoy her performance. But I don't know, it still felt like something was just missing to make this an exceptional film, or even like a really good film. That I wouldn't necessarily recommend this unless you are a big Jennifer Lawrence fan, or if you just generally like spy thrillers. I think it's competent. I think there's enough here to make you find joy in it, but I don't think it's something that you should rush out and see unless, again, those things appeal to you.
I never thought anyone would use the word joy in relation to this film, because it's a pretty glum movie.
You're right.
It's a real slow burner. It takes its time. But what I did like about it was, for me, every scene felt necessary or vital. There wasn't a lot of filler there for me. It did teeter on the edge sometimes of becoming convoluted, but it stayed on the right track, I thought. It's unashamedly open about its violence, its gore, sex and nudity. If you are slightly faint-hearted, then there will be scenes in there which will make you wince or turn away. But I thought it was a fantastic movie. I really did enjoy it. I think, don't worry about Black Widow. This is the spy movie we needed at the minute, I think.
I would like a Black Widow film, though. I'd like to see the take on it.
Yeah.
But,
I'll be interested to see how it plays out compared to something like this or Atomic Blonde, which are kind of that word again, but the grittier, sort of more grounded takes.
Yeah, Atomic Blonde, I thought I had more fun watching that because of the action. Like the stairwell fight scene in Atomic Blonde made it, all of those other scenes, really, really vital. And I heard some interesting comparisons because of the sexuality that both of the spies exhibit in the film. That the way the director, I think something Lawrence,
Francis Lawrence,
frames some of the shots with Jennifer Lawrence, feels more exploitative than what you get in Atomic Blonde. like a lot of times when you're seeing nudity in Atomic Blonde, it's her icing her wounds. You know, she's going into the bathtub, and then that one scene of sexuality in Atomic Blonde was very passionate and felt very, it was justified why it was there. I think it was I always mess up her name. I think Christy Puchko, who is a member of the Slash Filmcast, and she writes for like 20 different film sites. So I don't know which one her Red Sparrow article was on, but she made some really interesting points about the director's choices in Red Sparrow, making it more exploitative than not, with how he framed the shots, and even like there's a sex scene in the movie that is framed from the side, and it feels almost voyeuristic the way we're watching it, and I don't know. I thought Christy made some really good points.
Yeah, it's a very raw film, which, as I mentioned about her, Lawrence's performance, she also gives her a raw performance. She's not afraid to bear all. There is that exploitative side to it, but for me, Red Sparrow wasn't simply just a tale of using sex as a weapon. It is mainly, but it's also a strong story of a woman basically deciphering the needs and weaknesses of these powerful men and just systematically bringing them down. So for me, it didn't feel exploitative to the point where it was just for the sake of it. It felt like it was necessary to the overall narrative of the film and her character arc.
And I will say too that it does feel a little long. It's 2 hours and 20 minutes, I think, and it is a
long film.
I felt every minute of that. So
it would. I think. I also thought if you watched it alongside something like Notorious by the great Alfred Hitchcock, that has similarities to that as well. So that's what I thought during it.
Interesting. That's one that's on my my list to still watch. I've not seen Notorious, so
I would put Notorious as a better film.
Yeah.
As I'd put most of Hitchcock's films above most others, but
yeah.
I was surprised by Red Sparrow because I wasn't sure what to expect from it, but I came out happy with what I saw and thought it was a very good film.
Yeah, I liked it. So again, and I went in kind of expecting to not like it, so it won me over enough that I had a positive feeling about it. So.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that in terms of this movie, I rate it slightly higher than you do.
Yep, but both positive on it.
Yeah, which then takes us to our next film, which was A Wrinkle in Time, Ava DuVernay's big-budget blockbuster. Yeah. I thought this was definitely an ambitious movie, because apparently it was deemed too difficult to adapt. I haven't read the book, but apparently it was going to be too challenging to make into a film. And I know they think they made a TV movie of it before.
They did.
But while the ambition is always to be applauded, somebody having a go, for me, it didn't pay off in this film. It was what I did like was the vivid, vibrant colour palette, which made it a happy fantasy atmosphere for the most part. I thought Storm Reid, Levi Miller, and Derek McCabe, the three kids in the film, I thought they were brilliant, and they carried the movie, and I thought they were a lot better and more believable than the more experienced colleagues. And the messages in the film, self-belief, love, family, they're all excellent.
Yep.
But by the end of the film, though, I think the need to have those messages ingrained in you actually took over from the narrative. And in terms of the narrative, for me, it was a sticky plot. It was tonally a bit all over the place. And it was just a bit, and it was muddled and complicated for me, and I didn't particularly like this film.
Yeah. I'm on the other side for sure. I agree with almost everything you said up until the negative stuff. Like I love the messages. I enjoyed all the performances, and some surprised me. I am not a big Zach Galifianakis fan. I think we got that Hangover. He was such a shock. Everyone was kind of not expecting Hangover to be a success, and it really was funny. And he was like kind of the standout because who knew Zach Galifianakis?
Yeah, he was the breakout. Yeah.
Yeah, and since then, I generally find him to be kind of more obnoxious in the roles that he gets, and I don't think I've seen another movie with him in it where I was really excited that he was in it after I saw it. And when I saw he was in this, and even like in the trailer, where like, you think I'm joking, and they're like, yeah, kind of. It just seems so bleh, you know. And I ended up actually liking that character, even though it makes no sense. And I do want to point that out now because I do like this movie, but it has major structure problems as it feels like, and I've used this analogy many times now, but for this movie, that it's like going to a ride at Disney where you get into the little cart and you're going to go scene by scene, and there's not necessarily going to be any rhyme or reason why we're in the next location along the journey, but each location is going to be vibrant, beautiful, intriguing, and that's where I think I connected with this film, where a lot of people seem to be missing. I don't think it's meant to be a traditional narrative. I think our antagonist is Storm Reed. I think she's also the protagonist. I think she's fighting herself. Everything else in the movie is just a means of her learning to appreciate who she is. And that is obviously one of the messages, but I also think that's the real narrative. It's not the journey that she's on is irrelevant. It's not about the location she's going, it's about what she's discovering as she goes to them. And that's not a traditional narrative. Usually we want a very clear antagonist. We want to see a fight. We want to see it pay off, that the struggle that they've gone through. And I don't think that's what this movie is attempting to do. I think it's really an internal struggle. And you can't always visualize that. So you end up having all these, foreign locations, and we just jump around. And there's, I've heard people complain about some of the way that this narrative, like, how it ends up happening, it doesn't always make sense into the rules that we've been told in the movie. Like it doesn't always establish what the wrinkling is or how it's done. And they trim some scenes from the trailer. Like there's a scene in the trailer where she's holding like a fake ant and she's explaining the wrinkling thing. And that's not in the movie at all. Like it just happens, and we're just supposed to understand that it's happening. And so I can see those complaints being very valid. But at the end of the day, I actually had a really good time with this movie. I was smiling, I think, the whole time. I teared up a couple of times. The messages, and again, I do have a teenage daughter, so watching a teenage girl struggle with, finding her place and understanding where she belongs definitely clicked. And yeah, I ended up having a blast. And I gotta say, Chris Pine might be one of the most underrated male actors, because that dude does good work in everything I see him in. And I still feel like he's overlooked in conversations about like quality actors.
What was that film he was in last year?
Hell or High Water?
Him. No, it was. I think it was Chris Pine. I'm just going to make myself look really stupid here, but I'm sure it's him and a young girl. I think he won custody over his daughter, and I'm going to find out what that was, because he was very good in that. And it was another one of those films where people look at him and think, "Wow, Chris Pine's actually quite good as an actor."
Was it Chris Evans in Gifted that you're thinking?
Yeah, that's the one I'm thinking. That's the one I'm thinking of. Yeah.
But yeah, Gifted was great. But Chris Pine was in.
Also very good.
Yeah, it's another Chris. There's a lot of Chris's in Hollywood right now, so I don't fault
Chris
you.
Chris Pine would have been just as good had he been in it.
Sure, I actually agree. I don't know if you saw Hell or High Water though, from actually technically 2016. And then he was obviously Steve Trevor in Wonder Woman, and he was fantastic in that.
I really enjoyed him in that.
I am a big fan of this stupid musical called Into the Woods that most people hate, but I loved him in that movie. So yeah, and I really thought he has a very small role in A Wrinkle in Time, a prominent, important one, but he's not on screen very much. And I also like Michael Pena a whole lot in this movie, which I am a Michael Pena fan, but he shows up for a little bit in this movie, and he does some pretty good work when he gets the screen time.
Yeah, I mean there was one scene you mentioned that you said there's one scene I could think of. Sorry, towards the end, which was pretty emotional. It was pretty heavy. That did hit home, but for me, the rest of them just didn't. I did like the rest of the actors, the adult actors. I just thought the kids outshone them.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, Oprah Winfrey appearing as a near god will be probably one of the most on-the-nose moments of the year.
That's true. That's very true.
When Reese Witherspoon turned into a massive CGI lettuce leaf, yeah. I did start to question my sanity. But I took it as it was a fantasy film, so I didn't look too much into that. I did also think some of the CGI wasn't great. For Disney and the powers that they have behind them,
which that seems to be a trend. And again, I think if we look at the directors in each of the Disney films that have had bad CG, Black Panther, Thor Ragnarok, and now this, all
really
those
use it
directors are indie directors. This is their first
Mhm.
big blockbuster, and yeah, I think they need to maybe work with them in the CG department more, because I don't think it's as bad. I don't remember anything being as glaring as what we saw in Black Panther or what we saw in Thor Ragnarok. In Wrinkle in Time, and maybe I'm just too forgiving for like some of the looks and stuff. Like I like the way the little flower creatures looked, and um, the wrinkle. I thought the wrinkle effect was really cool. Not like amazing, not like the revolutionary
Yeah,
visuals or
yeah.
anything, but I didn't have any major problems, except the lettuce leaf was kind of cheesy. I don't know,
Yeah.
like it wasn't
When
the
it
best.
happened, it was very strange. When it just suddenly she just appeared as this flying gem lettuce.
Yeah, and for my site, I rate things. I have like a rubric essentially, and I do must see, not quite golden,
Mhm.
decent watch. This was a decent watch for me, so like it is in the middle run of my It's technically the bottom of my positive movies. Like the next thing is not a total waste of time, which basically means I hated 90% of the movie, but there was one redeeming quality. This was above that, but still, it's in the bottom ranking because there were like little things that I wish had been done differently. Mindy Kaling's character, her character has a really interesting character quirk, and then it's just like dropped later in the movie, and they
Mhm.
explain it away with expositional dialogue, but at the same time, it's like, yeah, but why drop that? It was a really cool, like, weird character trait that I would have loved to just stick with, and it's almost like you just couldn't think of anything else to write. Plus, the things she's quoting are not as profound as they maybe could have been. Like, she
Yeah.
quotes like a couple of rappers, which is fine, but like she's supposed to know everything that's ever been said. Like, she only pulling modern references seems a little like lazy writing, but
Yeah, and I mean, if that's from the book, then obviously, if it's taken from the adapted novel, then I suppose we can't lay the blame at the filmmaker's feet. But
mm-hmm.
they could have, yeah, had they had a chance to shake it up a bit and make them seem, of the world, of the history of the world a bit more. But I think this film ranked on the higher end of my negative. I think it's about 5.5. I gave out of 10.
Yeah,
I think kids would enjoy it. It might get a bit scary when the story enters the malevolent part of the planet they're on.
yeah.
Um, but
Which I heard. I keep referencing other critics because I do listen to a lot of other critics, and
yeah, yeah,
Battleship Pretension. Tyler and David both saw the movie, and both were on my side. I think they liked it more than I did. And one of the things they talked about though was how, like, in the '80s, like you watch Goonies or you watch Gremlins, there is a general sense that the kids are in danger in those '80s kids movies,
yeah,
and that has gone away a lot in modern kids films. So like bringing that back was really, I mean, it did it earlier this year. Well, I guess technically last year, where the kids were, I felt like they were in severe danger in it, and I felt that way here too. Like I was generally thinking the kids were doomed at times in this movie, and while that can be scary, I think it's real. You know what I mean? I think sometimes we sugarcoat things for kids. We don't want them to think bad things can happen. Um, and I think I don't think that helps them. You know what I mean? Like, we don't want them to live in fear, but we also don't want them to think they're invincible. Like,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
there should be like a healthy amount of kind of both. That, like, yes, you should live life, but be cautious.
I think any child with any common sense is going to realise that they're not going to get their arm tore off if they look into a drain. But
Yeah,
having it on screen, obviously having that kind of stakes and peril, it is only, like I say, in terms of the story, in the cinematic story, not in the real world, of course, but
yeah.
it can only be a good thing. It's just life lessons as well. And that's something that movies do well. But I mean, I thought A Wrinkle in Time had the potential to be, truly brilliant, fantastic. But I just thought for me the ambition outweighed the execution. It looked good. It sounded good at times. Some of the soundtrack was a bit cheesy, but the actual score I thought was brilliant. But for me, it just came across as slightly hollow, a bit too generic, and the story just didn't hit me
Yeah,
as much as I would have liked it to.
and I'd say you're in the majority for that movie too. Like, most people seem to be down on it. I found a happiness and a joy with it. And it might have been because I was a little late to seeing it, and so I'd heard a lot already when I walked in. So I probably walked in expecting to not enjoy it at all, and ended up going the other direction with it because of that. So
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely not the worst film you're going to see this year. Far from it, in fact.
yeah,
But I had expected more from it, and unfortunately, just didn't get that.
yeah,
But Maybe the next film can change our mind.
Yeah, well,
The next film is Tomb Raider.
Tomb Raider. I gotta say, I think I'm in hindsight, I like this movie more than maybe while I was watching it even. Because I've been thinking about it more and more. And one, I love Alicia Vikander. She
Agreed.
she really like brings credibility to a video game movie, and that's not something you can say about too many other video game movies. Like um, and I've played the old Tomb Raiders, like the ones that the Angelina Jolie movies were based off of. I've only barely started playing the one that this movie is built off of, and but just from what I played, I saw a lot of similarities. What I liked about Tomb Raider, aside from Vikander, I really liked the early action set pieces. There's the whole part like when she jumps into the river, and then the whole airplane suspended over the waterfall.
Yeah, yeah.
I love that sequence. And before she even ends up being Lara Croft, there's this bike race through the streets that was really cool. Yet, I feel like the first maybe 20, 30 minutes of the movie could have been trimmed down and shortened and got us to the island a lot faster, and really sped the movie up a little bit more, because it does feel a little long, and especially I think it loses something once she goes into the tomb, and that says something, right? Like the movie's Tomb Raider, and
When she starts raiding the tomb, it actually ruins the film.
yeah, it's like, oh, maybe we just need her as an action star, because she kicks butt as an action star. Like I was really feeling a lot of the action sequences, but like when she solves, like there's this huge puzzle she has to solve to get into the tomb, and they like montage it, and it's kind of doesn't look very difficult. Like it's almost like, man, these other people are really stupid, because she did this in like 5 seconds. Like I don't know, it feels like when she's solving the puzzles, it doesn't know how to make that cinematic or interesting enough. And there's another part where they're like putting crystals in a hole, and when she finally realizes it, she shouts it out loud for some reason. Like it just felt so like she wouldn't have done that. Why would she? The green, like why? What's happening? But overall, I was still up on this movie. It was way better than I thought it was going to be. Especially the trailer. Some of the CGI in the trailer looked real bad, and I never thought it looked as bad in the movie as it did in the trailer. Like her jumping like long distances and stuff felt better in the movie than they did in the trailer. So overall, I was positive on it. Still a decent watch to me. But yeah, definitely enjoyable. I liked Walter Goggins. I didn't like him as much as I wanted to. I thought he could have been better. I actually like Daniel Wu a lot, except this is kind of a spoiler, I guess, but Daniel Wu's character is separated from Laura for a good chunk of the movie, and at some point we're like in this tomb, and we just cut to Daniel Wu's character, who's just sitting outside with a gun.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, I literally leaned over to my friend during that. I was like, and cut to a different movie. Like what? Like what is this? Like why are we here right now? It made no sense. Like we did not need to know what he was doing, because he literally was doing nothing but waiting. Like we didn't need to see
He looked surprised to turn around and see the camera was trained on him.
Yeah, like wait, you're filming this?
An outtake, yeah. I enjoyed this film when I saw it. I was pleasantly surprised. I didn't think it's the greatest film ever. I think I gave it a 7 out of 10. But I expected it to be, well, rubbish, because you know it was one of the better video game adaptations out there. And I mean,
Definitely.
The video game genre is a well-established cesspit. But don't let that put you off this film, because it's nothing revolutionary. Some of the dialogue is some of the worst you'll hear this year.
Yeah.
As you said, some of the transitions from scene to scene and how characters get from A to B is quite frankly ridiculous.
Yeah.
But it was a good film. It's a lot more rugged and grittier and grounded than the old Tomb Raider films, which were kind of cheesy and more just a vehicle for Angelina Jolie's body.
Yeah,
but,
they were.
Yeah.
And so was the old game, though. The old game was all about Lara Croft had to have huge boobs.
Triangular ones, yeah.
Yeah, triangular.
Teenage Dream, yeah.
But yeah, giant nonetheless. And one of the things with this film too, and I have to throw it out there because I'm such a big Edgar Wright fan, but Nick Frost showing up for a very
really
small
funny.
part. Yeah, he's not in it very long, but man, does he steal the scenes when he's there. Like he's cracking me up, and
It's him and Jamie Winston in that shop.
Mm-hmm.
Are
Yeah,
fantastic. Yeah.
I really like
Um,
that. I hope they fit him in more if they get a sequel, because they definitely hinted at a sequel. Um, I'd love for him to become like her, like go to get
Watson to
gear.
Holmes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that would be amazing because I am a huge Nick Frost fan and he needs more work.
Well, I'll be interested in whether they get a sequel or whether this will become the franchise because it's got a $94 million budget and it's made $216 million worldwide. So
Hmm.
it's over budget and it's broken even, but only just. So I'll be
Yeah,
interested. But I like this new iteration. It desperately tries to be taken seriously by taking itself very seriously.
yeah.
Um,
It's
until they mention things like ancient Japanese ghosts and curses, then
yeah,
it started to get a bit silly. And then when the Tomb Raider starts raiding the tombs,
yeah.
that's the weakest
Well,
part. It's rushed as well.
and some of the narrative, because like the movie opens with that voiceover of Dominic West, who is her dad, explaining what he was after. And then she finds it in the movie. She finds like his hidden
Really
files, and
bad.
they do the same voiceover again. And I'm
Yeah, I
like,
know.
we already heard this. Like, we
It's,
don't need to see her hearing this. Like, we get it. Like,
the way she found it was so stupid as
yeah, it
well,
was. It was real dumb.
and how she got from London because she was in Shoreditch, which hasn't been cool for years, but they obviously thought Shoreditch in London was still cool.
Okay.
But how she got from Shoreditch to Death Island or whatever the heck it's called, that was rushed as well.
Yeah.
The pacing was not good, but
No.
it's funny because all we seem to be doing is tearing this film to pieces. But it was quite an
Yeah.
interesting film. The best part of it was Alicia Vikander. She's by far the best part.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
the way she went from kind of being vulnerable to an absolute savage was really well done and raw.
And believable. Like, you saw it
Unbelievable,
in it.
yeah.
Because
Charming and fierce.
opening it with her like doing the MMA training, I think you see that right away that she's got, even though that does get repurposed because she can't get out of a sleeper hold in that fight. And like the second that happened, I'm like, this is going to be a plot point later in the movie. And sure enough,
When she became a savage.
yes, but you see that in her, like she's got this unyielding determination, and that's, I think they tried too hard to make this like an origin story, and that's where I think the
Yeah.
pacing really falls apart. We didn't need all of the origin. Like we could have got like, you know, she's trying to find her father, blah blah blah. That was enough. Like you don't need all the other backstory to sell us on that she's awesome. Like she shows so much because she's again such a good actress because she can turn on the emotion, she can turn on the waterworks, but she's also got a ferocity about her that just is believable. You know, like
Yeah.
you see it in her eyes. Like, no, don't mess with her. She'll kill you. Like, she will totally take you out.
Yeah. Whereas Dominic Wu's just left, Daniel Wu's just left to sit outside a tomb,
Yeah.
looking surprised. The plane scene, I think, was the best scene of the whole film.
Yeah.
But I thought the film was actually worked better when the action was hand to hand, and the need for any kind of effects or CGI was minimal.
Agreed. Definitely. The CG definitely got shaky at best, but still tolerable. It wasn't the worst CG. We've talked about bad CG a lot in our 2 episodes so far, and it wasn't the worst one that I've seen. So
No, yeah, it didn't help at all. I mean, the end act, sorry, it was rushed, and some of the CGI was pap. But it, I guess you have to look at the budget and what they had to work with, and just try and pretend that it's all real. But some of it was not very good.
yeah,
But it was all of that aside, there was enough here to create an entertaining adventure film. And as I said, it's certainly one of the better mainstream video game adaptations out there. So
yeah,
a very good lead performance. There is some fun lighter moments in there, especially Nick Frost. But Alicia Vikander, she's very good at those comic moments. I thought Dominic West and Walton Goggins were extremely hammy, but
yeah.
it worked for the film. But from the bad pacing aside, bad CGI, horrendous dialogue, bad narrative threads, it wasn't a bad film, and the score was good. I think it's Junkie XL. I really enjoyed the score.
Yeah, somehow the film, despite all the negatives that we pointed out, is still enjoyable. And it might
We've spoken
just
about
be
more negatives for this film than any of the others.
I know, and it's because they're glaring. Like I think they're very noticeable, but Laura Croft is a compelling character, and Vikander plays her very, very well. and there's enough good in the movie to keep it on a positive feeling, I think, by the end.
Yeah, I think so. So I think it's fair to say that this movie, we're both in agreement for the first of the three that it was pretty good. It was entertaining. It had a lot of flaws, but it was okay.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm interested to see where we go for the next film,
Yeah.
Pacific Rim Uprising.
It
And
seems like we are very divisive on this one.
I do. Well, I've got to say, I mean, I love John Boyega. He's repping the English and the London boys, and his enthusiasm for this movie's been, utterly infectious. Seeing him on social media, marketing the film, and having so much fun was so good to see. And just before we go into this review, an obvious but a very necessary caveat: this is a film that contains mind-twinning robots fighting aliens that appear from another dimension. So don't take it all too seriously.
Yeah, big time, definitely.
Yeah, it's not. I wasn't particularly sold on the film. I didn't hate it. It falls into the same category as A Wrinkle in Time for me. That is certainly not the worst film I've seen this year. I enjoy parts of it. It's definitely entertaining, and there are some good moments in it. John Boyega's emphatic, and I thought his chemistry of Kaylee Spaney and Scott Eastwood's great. And I think without Boyega, the film sinks into the breach.
Big time.
But I think the first Pacific Rim was better. This one's big, it's brash, it's loud, it's a bit cheesy, it's a bit dumb at times, but there's nothing wrong with that. But it's still better than every single piece of rubbish the Transformers put out, apart from the first film.
Yeah, big time. There's a few reasons for that too. One, we get to actually see what's happening in this movie. In the Transformers film, and it's a Michael Bay camera style. He is always got so much movement going on that it gets really like just blur of
nauseating.
Yeah. And the other thing is, Michael Bay is dumb. Like, like he is sexist. He's slightly racist. Like, you get those negative things in your monster movie. Like, you have a great, Asian actor in your movie. Why not put him in a samurai robot? That's not offensive to anybody. And, these characters are black. Well, we'll make sure they talk extreme slang so that everyone knows. And we have Megan Fox. Well, let's put her in the shortest shorts possible, bend her over, and we'll just shove the camera right up her butt. Like, it is.
I mentioned in my review that in the last film, which I think was the last night or the pile of crap, whatever it's called, he even went as far as to sexualize a 15-year-old girl in the film.
Oh, Jesus.
And that didn't sit well with me because I think he's a gimp anyway, but all he's got to do, I wouldn't be surprised if he's homophobic just to make the holy triumvirate.
Yeah, and this movie has none of those negatives. Like, we have a fairly diverse cast, although they're very paper thin. Like our angry Russian girl, like that's all she is an angry Russian girl. We don't really know why she's angry. She's just
angry. She doesn't like being called Vic or Victoria, one of the two.
Yep. But I loved Kaylee Spaney, I guess is how you say her name.
I hope so, yeah.
Her and Boyega, man, the chemistry those two had, which that just might be Boyega. He just might bring chemistry for everybody because the dude made even Scott Eastwood, who is pretty bland. Like he might be the most vanilla actor in Hollywood right now. And yet the scenes where Boyega's leading the dialogue, there was almost a charismatic spark in Eastwood. It's still clearly not him, but Boyega's just got so much to give, and he's like the enthusiasm is infectious, like you said. Although I think you're talking about more of his promotion of the movie than the movie itself, but I'm
in the film,
yeah, I'm just on board with him, man. And I went in, all I wanted was to see some cool like Power Ranger level fighting in this movie, and they gave that to me, so I was pretty happy. Because I got real nervous when they mentioned the drones, and I was like, oh god, is this going to be like commentary on drone warfare? But no, it's not. It's not at all. They don't try to say anything about it. Like, yes, it's part of the movie, but they don't make any political stances because it's not the movie to do that. It's a dumb sci-fi robot fighting movie, and if you can get your head around just that, it's fairly enjoyable. There's definitely story problems. They make some really weird choices with characters from the first films, and I'm saying all of the ones that show up from the first film almost feel like they didn't need to be there. Like you
could have swapped them for anybody else.
Yeah, and it almost hurts the first film with what they decide to do with some of the characters.
Yeah.
And so
good point.
those choices are questionable, and I do think the first film is by far superior, but I found this as a turn your brain off, watch some big, like I watch UFC from time to time. I don't expect to learn anything when I watch UFC. I'm just looking for an entertaining fight, and that was what I went into Pacific Rim Uprising, and I walked out feeling pretty good about it. Like I had a fun time with it. I will say I bring my daughter to a lot of movies, and she picks and chooses. Like, she doesn't come to every movie with me, but I kind of told her she was coming to this one. And I looked over at one point in the movie, and her head was almost on the armrest.
90-degree angle.
Yeah, I was like, oh, she really doesn't like this.
Well, this is the first film I've seen in a long time where the audience actually positively cheered at the end credits.
Oh, wow.
I haven't seen that for a long time, and we're British. We don't do stuff like that. Usually, we might sort of raise an eyebrow in excitement, but people were cheering at the end of it, and I mean positive, not because it was over, but they were pleased, man. And I haven't seen that for a long time. I was concerned during it about how many people were being killed, slaughtered by a flailing kaiju tail flick during the huge, mindless city destruction battles. But I thought it looked good at times. Sometimes the CGI looked a bit weak when things got going. But the main thing I had a problem with was who was it? I couldn't work out during it. Was it a kids' film? Was it for adults? Was it for teens?
Yeah.
It's not an all-encompassing. It didn't really have a tone to settle on. It had an identity problem, and also, Charlie Day was frankly, he was horrible in this film.
He really.
And surely after that filled nappy that was fist fights, he would have learnt his acting lesson and stepped up. But I mean, Bern Gorman was also. He wasn't particularly great, and the PPDC cadets looked a bit like Power Rangers.
Which I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I thought they looked cool. But Charlie Day, every scene he was in just made me want to gouge my eyes out. He really almost ruined the film for me.
He is an actor. I think he's really fallen into his Always Sunny persona.
Yeah.
And he's getting, like... There's, like, no subtlety to him at all. And this movie, he really ups it. Like, this is Spinal Tap level, turning into 11 hamminess. And, again, I was not expecting anything, so I just kind of laughed it off. But, yeah, I totally can see. And I also suffered through Fist Fight last year, and, my God, that movie was so bad. I think the only scene I laughed at was the talent show sequence in that movie, and... That was not because it was actually well written. It was just I was so shocked at what was happening.
Something fun happened.
Yeah.
I think I'd enjoy me giving birth more than watching that film again. But about Pacific Rim, one of the main things I'm glad about was John Boyega brought back his British accent.
Yes.
And his British accent took down the kaiju. So I enjoyed that. He because I know he's been doing his American accent in pretty much every film apart from Attack the Block. But it was good to hear it back again. And I know he changed some of the script as well, because the original script by the director whose name's Sean DeKnight, I think is.
Yeah.
Stephen DeKnight, yeah. The original script didn't suit Boyega's British voice because it was using words like awesome and things like that, apparently, which didn't sit right with how an English guy would say it. So he changed. That's how he got his producer credit, because he basically changed a lot of his words and his story. So when he was saying it in his London accent, it didn't sound ridiculous.
Yeah, and
I found that interesting.
I think my favorite scene of just dialogue and not the big fighting robots was the ice cream sundae scene when he was making the ice cream.
Yeah,
that cracked me up. The whole leave me alone with my toppings. It's just
that's it, man. I could have eaten that ice cream as well.
Oh yeah, totally. And I enjoyed that whole. That was probably my favorite non-robot related interaction, but.
Yeah, and there's a moment actually in the film which, when I was watching it, I did think, that actually looks quite terrifying. It involves the kaiju. Mm-hmm. I guess it's not a spoiler to say that they're in the film because they're marketed as being in the film, but it's the first time you see one attempting to get out of the breach. It actually, the way it was filmed, looked quite terrifying.
Yeah.
If anyone gets a chance to see it, you'll know what I mean. But they filmed that really well. But I agree. When I liked the robots, I mean, I didn't have a problem with the film. I guess from an entertainment point of view, I did find it entertaining. But if I'm going to look at it with my was it a good movie glasses on, then it fell down for me because it's in terms of was it a great film? No, it wasn't. But it was an entertaining film. And
Yeah.
again, it's definitely not the worst movie you'll see this year. Sometimes you do need a film where you can, and I don't mean this derogatory, but sometimes you do want a film where you can just switch your brain off and just
Yeah.
watch giant robots smash up
I mean,
monsters from the sea.
I would say this is a B movie, and it's
Yeah.
successful as a B movie. And I think Charlie Day's villain role in the movie really pushes that B film criteria a lot because of
His
the
performance is about 20 years too late, but
yeah.
it's stuck in the mid-90s. But yeah,
But yeah, so as a B movie, I think it's pretty enjoyable. If you're, I agree. If you're like, and I don't think this film's trying to be anything more than a B movie. Like I don't
no,
think
it doesn't need to be. But
yeah,
yeah,
and it shouldn't be, because it doesn't have that. Like Del Toro brought Pacific Rim. He brought a monster robot fighting movie to a cinematic audience, and that's what Del Toro does. He takes genre film and he makes it art house, and that's what he does. It's like literally you could say that about almost every one of his films except for Blade 2 maybe.
yeah,
And so when you take him out of Pacific Rim 2 or Pacific Rim Uprising, I knew going in that this was not going to have that cinematic
nuance.
element. Yeah. And so I, again, taking it as a B film, enjoyed it very much. Definitely not a must-see film, but if you like, monsters and robots, come check out Pacific Rim Uprising.
Yeah, and the film certainly hinted at it. But would you go back to see the third film? Because I was actually intrigued by their setup for the third film. It did smell a bit like Independence Day Resurgence at the end of that, which was an absolute nappy of a film as well, toilet blocker of a movie. But I did enjoy if they could, how they set the third film up could be quite an interesting premise if they get it right.
Yeah, I think I would see it for sure. Especially if we get returning Boyega and the girl. I think I would be in it for that because I thought they were really good together on screen, and I love that that's kind of how the film starts, that we meet the two of them together, and instantly I was like, oh man, I like them as like a buddy cop almost,
Yeah,
And
it worked.
It did, and so if we go into the next movie and they're both back, I think I'd be down to see it. I hope it wouldn't be like the first film where they because the few characters that we get back, I don't think are treated very well in this movie. So, and talking about some of that would be spoilerish, so I'll leave it there.
Absolutely. There were nods to the first film which were quite nice, but yeah, without going into spoilers, the legacy characters are kind of handled, in a slightly offhand way. But this film I think was also sponsored by Tsingtao beer because everywhere you looked there was a poster or a bottle of Tsingtao beer.
Is that a popular beer?
It's a popular beer in Japan, I think.
Okay.
I think Tsingtao is Japanese. I had it once and it gave me gas because it was so bubbly. But if you get anyone go back to watch it, there's just Tsingtao posters everywhere. I guess it's their version of something like Budweiser.
Yeah, I mean,
stock beer.
You watch Transformers, boy, you get some advertising. So no surprise there.
Power Rangers, you get some advertising. I wanted a donut after that.
Well, yeah, was it Krispy Kreme?
Krispy Kreme.
Yeah, that was so out of place. I was like, what's happening?
It was. Then they just kept saying it. What's her name? Rita Repulsa just eating Krispy Kreme as the world was going to pot.
Oh man!
And the was it the center of the universe was underneath Krispy Kreme, and you thought there comes a point where you think, okay, there's kind of Wayne's World style.
Parody of
and then
commercials.
there's this. Yeah.
Oh man, I forgot about that part of that movie. Yeah. All right, well let's go to the next film.
I think this is going to be. This is, I know, the most divisive film between us of this podcast. It is the new Wes Anderson flick, Isle of Dogs. Would you care to lead?
Sure. I am a big Wes Anderson fan. During my 366 challenge, I saw the rest of his films that I had not seen, and some of those were some of the bigger ones. Like I had not seen Darjeeling Limited, I had not seen The Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou, and I had not seen Bottle Rocket, his first film, and I've now seen all of them. Rushmore, still my favorite Wes Anderson film, and then I think
Royal Tenenbaums.
I need to rewatch that one. I did like it, but it's not on my top 3, and it seems to be in everybody else's top 3.
I like that. And the Grand Budapest Hotel,
Grand
I think was his
Budapest.
last one. So, yep.
And I also love Fantastic Mr. Fox. It's a
That's
film.
incredible.
Yeah, I've taught that film for a few years because it's his most accessible, because it is PG, I believe, or it might be PG-13, but it's easy to show my high school students without having any concerns of opinions, or like Moonrise Kingdom makes me uncomfortable because of the whole like they're in their underwear kissing like teenagers. Like I don't really think it's appropriate for me to put that on for like high school students. Like, hey, check this out. So, but Fantastic Mr. Fox has none of that. We get Jason Schwartzman again, George Clooney, Meryl Streep. Like it's as per usual with him. He always has great cast, and Isle of Dogs is no different. I mean, the cast list, which I will not get into, but my God, the people that are in this movie, and some of them with super small parts. I mean, Tilda Swinton has like 6 lines in this movie.
But she's
great.
I liked her character. Yeah.
Yeah. Bryan Cranston, I think, gives his best performance on the big screen. I would have not had known that was Bryan Cranston because he's so subtle, and that's not usually how Cranston comes to a role. He's usually big and over the top.
Brash,
and brash. And I thought Chief was so soft spoken, and I feel I connected with him a lot. The character of Chief, I had a very strong connection to him, and I don't know if I'm projecting my own dogs onto these characters and thinking like, what if this is how my dog feels? And it's definitely possible. I definitely seem to project my own experiences onto movies a lot. I keep referencing like being a father and things like that, and I definitely think that could play a role. I love Jeff Goldblum in this movie, and the constant I heard a rumor, and Bill Murray I am a huge fan of. I thought Edward Norton was really good. Greta Gerwig's character was interesting. I have read several articles about the appropriation of the Japanese culture and how it's not treated fairly, and that our Japanese characters are kind of kept at a distance, and I get that, and I see a lot of the points. I didn't feel that when I was watching the movie, though, which is on me, and I don't feel good about that. Like as a white guy, I'm like, well, maybe I should have noticed that more, or maybe it should have bothered me more than it did. But I feel like it's unfair to expect a writer to write from a perspective that they don't have. Wes Anderson is a white American male, and he is a very hipster white American male at that.
The auteur.
Yeah, and so he is writing from the perspective that he's been able to experience, and a lot of the Japanese elements of the film are paying homage to the Japanese filmmakers that he's experienced. That's why they are wearing the samurai type clothing.
Kurosawa, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, it's not because he thinks Japanese people are samurais now. It's because he was specifically referencing films from that time period where that's how Japanese culture was depicted. And I know not everyone's going to get that, and I'm not defending it. I don't think anyone who's saying that it's wrong is wrong. I think they make very good points. But I'm trying to, I didn't see that when I was watching it. I was pulled into the story. I did get connected to the characters. I didn't feel distant. Even from Atari, I never felt a distance from him. But to me, Anderson wanted us to be focused on the dogs as our main character. The only conflict with that is Tracy, which is Greta Gerwig's character, because she gets, being a white girl in Japan, the fact that we are connected to her as a person, and yet all the other major characters are at a distance because of the language barrier, is a little controversial, I think, more so than anything else. But at the end of the day, I had a really good time with this movie. The more I've reflected on it, the more I find little things that I just really love, the quirkiness that Anderson brings to the movie. I love the hybrid animation styles that he, predominantly it's claymation, but there are moments where we get 2D animation, like on the TV screens and stuff, and I just thought it looked awesome. And yeah, it's such a crazy production to do stop motion like that, and I think he does it so well. And the repetition of certain types of shots and things like that you see in the movie, it's just, he's such an expert filmmaker. I wish there was no controversy, and again, I'm not saying the controversy is wrong. I just wish it wasn't there, because I think we could appreciate the film more if he had maybe not said it in a futuristic Japan that seemed to think that the future was in the past. It is at odds with itself in that way. But we were at a big screening. It was a opening free screening that 3 different companies had given out passes. There was a separate section just for critics. So it was a packed house. I think there was 1 row of seats empty in the theater, and everyone seemed predominantly up on it. I heard a few people saying some negative things about it, but my friend group, I think we had 8 people at this movie, and we were all really up on the film, and all really we stood outside talking for like 20 minutes about how much we enjoyed it. So I know, though, from what I saw of your review, you are on the opposite end of the spectrum.
I like Wes Anderson's films. I think he's a I'd even go to say he's an underrated filmmaker, because when I talk to people about top filmmakers, I never really hear his name mentioned.
Yeah.
But he's got such a fantastic eye for making films, and like you said, some of the shots in this film were great. Before I go into anything else, I would fight anybody who denies that this doesn't look like a fantastic movie in terms of the visuals.
Mm-hmm.
I think the animation is probably the best of its kind that there's ever been in terms of this kind of stop motion.
Yeah.
That being said, I didn't like the movie. I couldn't. I thought the movie was about 45 minutes too long. It would have worked as a fantastic, great short film, but it was stretched to breaking point too early. The character you mentioned, that Greta Gerwig voiced, I think you could have probably just got rid of her arc altogether.
Yeah.
I think.
Although I love Greta Gerwig, so I'm still like, no, but you're right.
There's that side of it, yeah.
Yeah.
The voice acting's good. It's strong. There's no complaints about that at all. Goldblum and Murray are great, and I love Goldblum's character having, the more humorous moments, and all he ever says about is rumors, and where does he get them from?
Yeah, I love when Bill Murray asks, like, where do you hear these? He's like, I listen to people.
That's it. So that side of it, I like those little moments, and the dialogue, obviously intentionally being kept in the native tongue, it gave that authenticity to the film, and kind of put us in the shoes of, or the paws of the dogs, because they don't understand. And I liked how they translated it via the TV translator and the machinery and whatnot. That was
Frances
good.
McDormand doing the translation was pretty crazy.
Exactly. To think, like, you've mentioned some of the names, and Liev Schreiber as well. In it, the bit I enjoyed the most was just trying to work out which one was Cranston and which one was Schreiber in the movie. That was what I enjoyed the most out of it. But where I mentioned that Pacific Rim had people clapping and cheering, for the first time in years, during this film, I saw a couple of people just get up and leave halfway through. I mean, I didn't think I was never in any danger of getting up and leaving. I've never done that in any film, but it just didn't grab me. I was disconnected with the characters quite early on, because there wasn't a lead protagonist to hold on to straight away, I didn't find. So I didn't find any connection with the characters. I wasn't really compelled by the story. As I've said, it just went on for too long for me. It looked great. It sounded great. There was nothing I got out of it which really excited me, apart from a few small moments here and there. But this was a disappointment for me, because certainly after his last animation film, the superb, fantastic Mr. Fox, this to me felt like a completely different filmmaker in terms of the quality. Whereas that film was excellent, I didn't think this film was. And from what I've been reading and seeing, I'm in the huge minority, I think, because a lot of people have taken a lot out of it, whether that's because they like Wes Anderson as a director-filmmaker, whether that's because they took it on a personal level because of the dogs or whatnot, or just they just liked it as a film. I just couldn't get into it. I wanted to.
Are you a cat person, Matt?
No, I don't like cats. They make me sneeze, and they are arrogant little things, but they push their bowl over to you, and they go out all day, then they come back in expecting to be fed. Yeah. I used to have a dog. I love dogs for the most part, but I just couldn't get into this film.
Yeah,
there was just something. There was something missing for me, which I really wanted to like this film, because it came out on the 29th and on the 30th, over here in the UK, and I went out to see it in an early screening. I was looking forward to it, but I left just feeling tired and just disappointed.
Now, I have to say, and I don't mean to project onto you either, but I know that when I saw Shape of Water for the first time, I went to like a 12 o'clock screening, and I don't think I was up for the movie that I was watching, and I walked out I walked out feeling confused, because I'm like, I know what I just saw is great, but it doesn't feel great. Like, I don't feel attached to this movie at all. I felt very distant from it, and I wonder, if maybe seeing it a second time could find that connection, because I definitely found connections to latch on to this movie, and I've heard some interpretations of this film, like about xenophobia and things, and I took this very much on the surface of like dogs that can talk. I like dogs, and
Yeah. I took the political things from it and sort of some of the more timely messages of the arcs of the characters. I got that out of it. But The Shape of Water, I'd be more likely to come around to that, because that was another film that I think I gave about 6.5 out of 10. I thought it was okay, and then it went on to win Best Picture. So what do I know?
Yeah.
But
or what do they know? Who knows?
I'm right, guys. Yeah, I don't know. This film, like I said, it was just, for me, it was a very good short movie, but I thought the narrative was overly stretched at being an hour and 40 minutes long. I thought it was just too long. I can't see myself ever rushing back to watch it, which is a shame, because I was so excited to see it, obviously because of the director and filmmaker attached to it. The voice casting is something else. I love the look of it, but I like everything about it apart from the film, apart from the story.
Yeah, that's sad, man. And I totally can respect that, and I could be wrong. I am a bit of a Wes Anderson fanboy. I think partly because not enough non-film people don't seem to know who he is.
Exactly, yeah.
And so I constantly find myself like, you've never seen Rushmore? You have to watch Rushmore. I love Rushmore. Rushmore is like a near perfect film for me. I can rewatch it over and over again. I love Schwartzman in it. I love Bill Murray in that movie. Man, and talk about a breakout performance for Schwartzman in that film. Like, it's ridiculous.
Oh, for sure.
And so I do come to like the Wes Anderson battle cry.
I do like his films. It's just this is I think that's why I was so, I don't want to use the word crushed, but so disappointed, because I love the Royal Tenenbaums and the Darjeeling Limited and the Life Aquatic. And he's a great collaborator, Bill Murray.
Yeah, he is.
For the most, every film I've watched of his, I've enjoyed or appreciated. And I think that's why I was so disappointed with this one, because I just didn't get anything out of it. Whereas before, I'm usually on board with everything apart from his haircut. I'm usually on board with everything he does.
Yeah, I don't know if the conversation I walked out, I would have given this my not quite golden rating when I walked out of the movie, but talking with my friends for a while, and then really thinking, because I didn't write my review when I got home that night. It was a long night. I wrote it the next day, and by the time I wrote it, I decided to go must see.
Okay.
It had pushed me up, and I don't know if that was from maybe their optimism like rubbed off on me, or I think I really sat and like thought about the moments that I loved from the movie, because I did have issues with parts of it, and some of the narrative choices, and at the same time I also like his nonlinear structure where we jump back with flashbacks and those things. I was into that. He hasn't really dabbled with that very much, and so I liked the approach, and I think by the time I got to it, I just found, maybe even for like purposely erased the bad parts and embraced the good, just to be, I do. It's like a 81 on Metacritic right now, and
I think it's about 98 or something like that on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah, and yet a lot of the critics that I listen to, I've heard mainly negative things from. So it's really interesting to me. Slash Film was heavily down on the movie. I have not listened to the Film Spotting podcast yet, but they just released their episode, and I know one of the guys on that show is like really, really big Wes Anderson fan, so I'm curious to hear what he has to say. And then,
not that I'd ever apologise for my ratings or opinions, but I thought I was the only one, so I'm quite glad that there are others out there.
Yeah, no, I've heard some like and again, a lot of it does tie back into the appropriation. Angie Han wrote a really, really good piece. I think it's on Mashable about the appropriation, and it's basically her saying that Anderson tried to do something really good, but there's so much that he does wrong that it cancels out the good. So yeah, there's other out there, but it does. If you look at just the aggregators, it looks like this movie's near perfect. But if you listen to some individuals, some really strong arguments are being made as to why it's not as good as those people saying it. And I think that's also going to be true for general audience opinions of the
Yeah.
next and last movie that we're about to talk about.
Just before we go into that, I would like to say that I did rank Isle of Dogs higher than 50 Shades Freed, Mute, and Winchester.
Yes.
That is a success in my eyes. So yeah, as you've mentioned, the sixth and last film, and by no means least, is probably one of the most anticipated releases of the entire year. I'd go as far as to say.
Yeah.
The apparent return of a man who's been cranking out movies for the last decade, but Ready Player One, Steven Spielberg's Ready Player One. As I said, the world is screaming that Steven Spielberg is back, but I don't know where he went. I don't. Did the post,
for
the
real.
BFG, Bridge of Spies, Lincoln, your favourite warhorse, did they just never happen? I mean, he had a quick restroom break, and then he's come and made Ready Player One. So
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure where they came from, but
And I will put this out right now. I am a Spielberg supporter. Like I love. I mean, Jurassic Park is in my top 5 all-time movies, and Jaws really could be in that list too.
yeah.
I am a huge Spielberg fan, and I love. I've missed several. I still haven't seen Munich, and I hear great things about Munich.
I was going to say Munich is one of the ones that nobody talks about, but it is powerful.
And I haven't seen AI, which I've heard mixed things about, but it's one that the history of AI alone, that it was a Stanley Kubrick script that then Spielberg finished and made. I need to see it just for that reason. And
The dream team almost.
yeah, but I generally like his films. I didn't see BFG. I went to see BFG, and then while we were in the movie, the first 10 minutes of the film, we found out that our house had been broken into, and we had to leave and come home and deal with that. So that was kind of a nightmare.
Important, yeah.
Yeah, and I don't want to see it now because I associate that.
The memories, yeah.
Yeah, so
Everybody I spoke to didn't like it, apart from my scintillating missus, who said she really enjoyed it. So the one person who gives me the most chatter said it was brilliant. So I take her word for it.
But I think I want you to start on Ready Player One. So what were your thoughts on Spielberg's newest film?
It's a nostalgia hound's utter dream. Is the first thing I say. Is if you love pop culture and video games and nostalgia, there's a high chance you're going to absolutely love this. I love pop culture, video games, nostalgia, but I didn't love the film. I thought it was just okay. It was great to see the DeLorean, the Iron Giant, and the horror scene, shall we say, in it.
Yeah.
That was the best part of the film for me. I don't know if we're going to go into that or not. But
I don't think we should, but I completely agree.
That was by far the best part of the film. I don't know. I liked it, but I had a problem with some of the characterizations. I thought they were very thin. I thought Ty Sheridan and Olivia Cooke were solid.
Yep.
But so part of their chemistry was slightly forced. Ben Mendelsohn was a devil as the villain, but I thought he was a very sort of Scooby-Doo villain. He literally would have gotten away with it if it wasn't for those meddling kids. He literally would have done. I thought the story was lacking something. It's not a bad story. It just didn't grab me like I hoped it would. Certain parts felt rushed. Some of the CGI looked incredible, but at times it became too much for me because a lot of the film, as the trailers have marketed, is kind of like CGI photorealism, like the old Final Fantasy films.
Yeah.
That got a bit wearisome for me eventually. I also wondered as well, whilst watching it, how many of the younger people who are watching it would understand the references, because it spanned about 3 or 4 decades, the references, but I wonder if people under the age of kind of 20, 18 would understand a lot of them, because a lot of it was rooted in the 80s.
Yeah.
So I'm intrigued by that. But I don't know, I found a lot of the time I was looking out for the references more than being invested in the film, and I thought it sagged a bit in the middle. The end act was good, but some of the characters made questionable decisions which kind of didn't feel like the same character, shall we say. I don't know, there wasn't really, and also another thing that bothered me, there wasn't any prevalent messages. I was waiting for some real messages about the digital age and this dependent world we live in, and there was a kind of admonition at the end, but
yeah,
it felt like a bit of a missed opportunity. But I might
It's
sound like I'm banging on at the film. I did enjoy the film, but I just didn't like it. Enjoy it as much as I'd hoped I would.
This is a movie for me that I was more up on when I saw it, but now I've heard so many people raving about it that
Mhm.
I feel like I have to start being more critical, because I have an issue with people elevating a film to greatest of all time
Yeah,
when it's just really good. And the Avatar is the biggest for me. Avatar is a fine movie. It's like in the middle. It's a 5 out of 10. It's a 2.5 out of 5, and yet it has more
serviceable.
money
Yeah,
ever. And it got elevated by people. It's like, oh, it's because it's pretty, and it's no. And I feel like Ready Player One is going to enter that territory just based on the like. I enjoyed it a lot. I walked out feeling very excited. There were so many cool moments we get to see in the race sequence that you see in the trailer. The
yeah, yeah,
DeLorean,
yeah.
the Batmobile, the 66 Batmobile, which is the best Batmobile, and
Yeah.
anyone says otherwise, they are wrong. It is the best, and you get to see those, and then the Akira light, the bike, which I can't sit here acting like I was some big Akira fan, but I know that bike.
Yeah.
Um, and the Bigfoot, even monster truck, was really cool, and
I can tell how excited you're getting just
yeah,
thinking about those old references.
yeah, it's a great sequence. I love that sequence, and then as we've now dubbed it, the horror sequence, which we will.
Oh,
I was literally so excited. I was like nerd clapping, like little tiny
yeah.
like golf claps, like oh my god, oh my god, oh my god.
And they
And
got it so right as well.
they did, and it looks so impressive because it looks like the real world. Yet you
I,
have these CG characters in it, and
I think certain parts of it was the actual footage because
it was,
yeah, because the studios are, I think, maybe the same, but yeah, they got that right.
and it looked so good together. I was so impressed with the
Yeah,
CG in that sequence. And it was funny, and it was also scary. Like there were moments in that sequence that I'm like,
yeah,
oh
yeah,
my god, they still have that horror. And um, I think that's a big Spielberg Easter egg in and of
yeah.
itself, like using that particular idea. Mark, I
It
think
happened at the right time for me, by the way, because it was kind of in the middle of the film where I thought it was starting to sag a bit, and
yeah,
that kind of elevated it just that bit for me.
it does, and I think it carries. I think it kind of it's downhill from that point, but in like a positive way. Like it's like going like you've been climbing to the top of the mountain. That is the peak, and then you ski down the rest of the way. It's like it's a fun ride. There's some other bumps and things along the journey, but one. I think Spielberg has found a muse in Mark Rylance, as his last
Yeah,
three films has featured him.
Garth Algar.
And man, oh yeah, dude, he totally feels like Garth in this movie. I didn't even recognize it was Rylance though until afterwards. I was like, oh my god, like, I really liked him in the movie. I don't think I've ever heard Simon Pegg use an American accent before. Um,
I commented that they should have just used Michael Sheen for that part because he looked like him,
he kind of did.
and I would have believed it more had it been Michael Sheen because I
Uh,
couldn't. I Simon Pegg, his hair, the way he sounded, I knew it was Simon Pegg, and it just looked off. It came across as
see,
off.
I will. This is again. This is an admission on my part. If Simon Pegg or Nick Frost are in something, I'm probably just gonna love it
Yeah,
because I am such big fans of the Edgar Wright films that I love Simon and I love Nick Frost. So I
even the film they did, Paul.
yeah, I like Paul.
Yeah,
I
cool.
find sure it's a Seth Rogen movie, so it drops at several pegs. But
Ah,
I
well
find
done.
yeah, it was there. I find great joy and some very funny moments in that movie, despite it being questionable at best. Also, big Jason Bateman fan, and
Yes.
he's great in that. And then there's the twist with there's some good stuff in Paul. Let's not throw that under the bus. But I was happy to see Simon Pegg in this.
Hmm.
I thought I'm a big Olivia Cook fan. She was
Yeah.
great in Thoroughbreds that came out this month as well, and I like seeing her getting this type of big exposure because I think only indie people know who she is because of Me and Earl and the Dying Girl,
She was in the
Thoroughbreds.
Limehouse Golem last year, which I didn't like as a film, but she was the best part of it.
Oh yeah, I don't know. I don't think I'm even aware of that movie, and that makes me sad in myself. But I definitely I really like this movie. I would say it was not a must see, unless you are a nostalgia fiend, and then it's yeah definitely, it is for sure because there's so I mean they make a Buckaroo Banzai reference.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I know that only because of my top 5 partner, Mike. Mike is a huge Buckaroo Banzai fan, and I watched it this year, I think, or within the last 6 months, because of him. And I'm like, who is that Easter egg for? Like, that's for like the
I think
hardcore.
they even reference that as a deep cut in the film as well.
Yeah. And because it's a connecting point between the two characters. Because
Yeah.
if she's really as cool as she says she is, she'll know this, and she of course does. And I'm like,
Of course.
I'm looking around the theater like, does anyone else know what this is? Because I would be very impressed.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That is more of a, like you say, well, again, a deep cut. But as I said before, how many of without meaning to sound like younger viewers don't know anything about the past, but
Yeah.
I just wonder how many references went over people's head and what enjoyment, somebody who's 16 might get out of the film compared to those who are in our 30s and older.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, I liked it. I actually saw it twice because I went Wednesday night for the premiere, and then my daughter wasn't able to come, and she really wanted to see it, so we went yesterday and saw it again.
You had a special T-shirt on as well, didn't you?
I did. I had my Ready Player One shirt that I got from
Yeah.
Lootwear, which is really cool because it's the stacks, but the stacks are shaped and colored to make it look like an arcade cabinet, which I really, really like the shirt a whole lot. It's probably my favorite Lootwear shirt to date, although I also have a Pacific Rim Uprising shirt because of them. So yeah, two of our March movies. But I definitely like the movie. I do fear that it's going to get elevated to like this high. It's not Jaws and it's not Jurassic Park.
No, it's not one of his. It's not one of Spielberg's top tier films. I don't think.
And I'm very much aware that both of those two movies are more popcorn films. They're not Schindler's List, which is really, if we were talking about like, look how great of a filmmaker he could be. Schindler's List needs to be probably number one. Saving Private Ryan's up there, But for me,
Amistad.
I haven't seen Amistad.
It's fantastic.
But for me, when I look at Spielberg, I am a fan of his popcorn type movies. E.T., Close Encounters. I mean, God, the guy has made. I hate that Spielberg. It feels like he's not respected as an auteur because his movies are so different. But come on, man, the dude is a master at what he does.
I don't think I'd struggle to find anybody who could sit there and say I don't like him as a filmmaker because the breadth of films and variety and diversity shown appeals to everybody.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy who did Schindler's List, also did E.T. He also did the BFG, and the guy who did Amistad did Jurassic Park and Jaws, and this film and Warhorse. Your favourite things. I'm going to keep saying. If anybody else doesn't know, JB hates horses for no other reason than he just doesn't like them.
I don't like them in movies. I don't know what it is. I honestly
he doesn't like their long noses.
They freak me out, man. It's in their eyes.
They're coming for you, man.
Yeah, but. I liked Ready Player One. It sounds like you also were positive on it, but I don't think either of us think this is a revolutionary film. So those of you out there who are like acting like this is the best movie ever made, please calm down a little bit. Like, you can enjoy
or tell us why.
Yeah, or tell us why, but you can enjoy this movie and not use hyperbole to express your idea. Like, it's a fun movie. It does, and Spielberg's even come out and basically said that, like, this is not a film, it's a movie. He's distinctively calling it a movie to emphasize that it doesn't have a message, like you said. It's not trying to say anything revolutionary, and the message that they do kind of tack on at the end about technology is just that. It's tacked on at the end. It's definitely not the lesson that the characters learned. I mean, I guess they learn it, but they learn it through really specific expositional dialogue and then just apply it. Like, there's no real, tragic story, and there's some parts in this film, like with storytelling, the whole aunt and boyfriend thing at the beginning of the movie is so pointless and such a waste of time.
Need that at all.
Yeah, it could be trimmed out and save speed, because it's 2 hours and 20 minutes, but there's still gaps in the story where it feels like we jump way too far. Like, from the
some bits are very rushed.
Yeah, from the second key to the third key, it literally, they jump with like this really throwaway. Oh, and by the way, this happened. Like, what?
I think you were a bit more up on the film than I was. I liked it. I thought it was just okay.
Yeah.
But I really wanted to like this. But I just found that it was well acted, but the characters just didn't have any development, and the story wasn't the most inspired, and partly some of that was also due to the fact that they spent so long trying to work out how to get this first key, and then the second and third ones were just kind of, oh, do this, do that, and then but yeah, when they get to the third one, you think, oh bloody hell, really?
Yeah, yeah.
But, what I did like was the humour. I thought that they got that
Yeah.
really, and surprisingly, T.J. Miller was one of the better parts of the lighter parts of the movie, because
Yeah.
I have issues with him sometimes. I think he can be good, but he can also be excruciating, like he was in Goon: Last of the Enforcers.
Oh, I didn't know he was in that.
He'll make you want to put your head through the screen.
Oh man.
But I thought the humour was good. I enjoyed that.
Yeah, agreed. I laughed a lot. I actually was laughing more. I didn't laugh more the second time, but like I noticed where I was like the only one laughing out loud at points, and I was like, "What, are you guys not getting the jokes? Like, what's happening?"
There's one again. I won't say anything because it gives away something. But there's one towards the end when they're having a massive, when there's a big coming together of every single pop culture reference in the world.
Yep.
There's one involving another horror character, which has only lasted about 10 seconds, but that got the biggest laugh out of me, just the way it was played.
Yep, and
I didn't expect that.
It gets the one F-bomb the PG-13 film
Yeah,
gets.
yeah, that's the one. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's exactly the one. You know which one I mean.
I
thought that was brilliant.
Yeah, it was.
And also, I've got a fondness for posters with purple on it, and I thought the purple in this film was superb. Color-wise, it was a beautiful movie to look at for the most part. But yeah, it's just the story let me down, and the character development. I love Ben Mendelsohn, but I thought he was a bit stupid in this film. His character was it was intentional, I think, to kind of make him a bit inept, but it was a bit Scooby-Doo for me. I haven't read the book, but I have heard a lot that there was an awful lot of changes from the book to kind of. The book's a lot darker, I think. I've heard.
I just bought the book, like literally after. I think we bought it before my daughter saw it, and she stole it. She's already reading it. She took it, so I'm gonna have to wait till she finishes. But I actually might buy the audiobook though, because Will Wheaton reads it, and
cool.
I'm a fan of him, so I'm like, oh man. But I think that concludes our 6 reviews.
Yeah, but is there anything else you saw this month? Just to give a kind of quick thumbs up to or thumbs down.
I really liked Love, Simon.
I get to see that. It doesn't come out till beginning of April over here.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's weird because I'm already getting like emails to like pre-order it for the digital copy.
Wow.
And I'm like, wow, is it doing that bad? Because it's got a really positive critic score. I found it to be very, very funny and very endearing. Thoroughbreds, I enjoyed a whole lot. It made me sad because I love Anton Yelchin and I hate that he's dead.
Rest in peace.
Yep. But Anya Taylor-Joy and Olivia Cooke in Thoroughbreds are amazing. And it's such a simple movie because it's predominantly shot in just a few rooms. But man, it works, and it was.
I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, I took my 14-year-old with me to see it, and she was, I think, kind of overjoyed with how interesting the film was because it's crazy. Like it's a crazy movie, but really, really good. Totally.
The trailer made it out to be pretty crazy. Again, it doesn't come out until the first week of April over here, so.
Oh man.
I'm looking forward to that one.
Well, I thought I was going to miss that one because it did not come to my local theater. I had to drive 40 minutes. And it came to that theater while I was at South by, and I didn't think it would survive 2 weeks, and it did. So I made an effort to go see it. Like I literally got back from South by on Saturday, and then dragged my daughter to see it on Sunday because I was like, I'm not taking a chance of missing this. And I was very happy that I did. I liked it very much. So those are, I think, the only 2 other movies I saw in the theater this month. But thumbs up to both.
I caught, in terms of the UK releases for March, I caught Game Night, and I thought that was pretty funny.
I like that.
I didn't mind that. It was okay. Roman J. Israel Esquire came out over here, and I thought that was absolutely abysmal.
I've heard it's really bad.
Yeah, Wonder Wheel, the Woody Allen film, I enjoyed that a lot. Nick Cage and Mum and Dad came out. I thought that was abysmal as well.
Oh man, I want to see that. I've heard it's
crazy.
Movie. Yeah.
It's proper B movie, and if you like Nick Cage just losing his mind, then which I do. There are moments in this where he goes back to classic Cage. So that was probably the only good thing about it. It's got actually that's a lie. It starts off really well. I like the first half an hour when they're kind of setting it up, and there's this really quite cool mystery about what the hell is actually going on. When it gets revealed, it's I didn't like it. And then, as mentioned, Paco Plaza's Veronica on Netflix.
I need to see that.
I'd been turned on by the fact that it was apparently the scariest movie of all time. It was another one of those films, like you mentioned, which has kind of been held up in this esteem, which it isn't worthy of. But I found that to be pretty atmospheric. I like him as a director anyway. He did the Wreck series and a couple of other films. If you get a chance to check it out on Netflix, watch it. If you can get past the subtitles, which I think most people should be able to, you'll enjoy it. And the fear is actually in the atmosphere and the slow pacing, so you don't even need to know what they're saying. It's apparent.
Okay.
So they're the films I caught up on this month, and there's an awful lot coming out next month too to look forward to.
Yep, we'll look forward to doing this episode in a month.
Absolutely.
April's got some stuff, but man, May, June, July, they're looking packed. So I think we're gonna have a lot to talk about.
Now.
Yeah, this year is crazy. Some of the there's so many indie directors getting new releases this year too that I keep finding out. Like Lenny Abrahamson, who did Room and Frank, has a movie coming out at the end of August that I didn't know about, and it's a horror movie. So he keeps changing genres. So I'm really curious to see how that one plays. And I mean, this year, 2018's hoping it's going to keep, because on the other hand, a lot of movies that I've been excited for have not been as good as I wanted them to be.
Yeah, and then there's films like Rampage coming out next month, which may actually be too. We've given Pacific Rim, kind of given them a pass. You certainly have given them a pass for being that kind of movie, but Rampage does just look just terrible. But
it's a B.
I thought that was Jumanji, and I enjoyed that.
True.
So, well, I think that's just about that for this episode of the Bloody Awesome Movie Podcast. John, where can the world find you on the internet?
You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Burke Reviews, and of course you can read all my reviews at burkereviews.com.
Awesome, and you can find me at whatiwatchtonight.co.uk, WIWT_UK on Twitter, What I Watched Tonight on Instagram. Go on iTunes and search for the What I Watched Tonight show, and you'll see a heck of a lot of supreme podcasts on there. So check out my work, check out John's work, and between that, you won't need to listen to anything else.
Never again.
Exactly. Any final words, John?
No, just I say keep reading what we're doing, and if you like what we do, please share us, support us, and we try to do the same. I think we're both pretty good about supporting other film reviewers and filmmakers.
Yeah, and there's nothing better about doing this and having people, want to talk to you about it, whether they liked your opinion or not, or just want to talk films,
Yeah,
just do it. We're always here unless I'm asleep, but then I'll get back to you in the morning. Well, that's that. So then until next time, keep watching those movies and don't forget to stay bloody awesome.
Bloody awesome! Bloody awesome! Bloody awesome! Bloody awesome! Bloody awesome! Bloody awesome! Blood, bloody, blood, bloody, bloody, bloody awesome!